I'm here with Steve Carter, and he is a fabulous communicator, preacher, teacher, author, coach, consultant, and a friend. We became friends in kind of a unique journey, and I'm very grateful for that, as grateful for your heart and character. So we have been talking at Become New about the Sermon on the Mount, and we're coming to the end of it. So taking a little time for folks just to reflect on the overall teaching, what they would want to carry into regular life. And I was thinking about how much of the Sermon on the Mount Jesus talks about like anger. That's kind of the first character quality. You heard it said, try to avoid killing people. But, if your heart's consumed with contempt for folks, that's a problem. And don't just love your friends, but also actually love your enemies. That's what it means to be perfect like God is perfect. That's what God does. And we both worked at the same church, but not at the same time. But there was a difficult journey there for both of us. We don't have to get into details there, but that notion of how do you deal with people when you feel hurt by them, and how do you be human and live with the anger of that, and yet try to carry out what Jesus said about loving your enemies, then it stops being abstract and gets very real. So I'd love any reflections that you want to bring on that one.
Well, I think the conversation of anger is so fascinating because it's really a conversation about will. Like, in the sense of anytime I find myself getting hysterical, it's usually historical. So like just becoming curious of that and trying to be aware of the feelings. And that's why it's like emotion. There's like a movement. There's going to be movement to those feelings unless I can stop it and begin to recognize what it is really about.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a home that was brutally abusive. So anger was something I learned to walk on eggshells and dance around and read a room, which caused me, as I entered into my teenage years and 20 years, to go to the other side.
So you're kind of doing people management with whoever the character is, mom, dad, whoever. How do I manage them to avoid causing anger to get
Exactly. And so I realized for me, oftentimes what I did, thinking I was doing the right thing by not getting angry, by not calling raka or you fool, or was to minimize or almost spiritual bypass or bright side. And I realized Jesus isn't saying you can't be angry.
Yes.
It's what are you choosing to do with that anger? Is it to bring it before the Lord and say, the injustice of this, the sadness of this, the grief of this, teach me how to do it, Jesus.
Yeah.
Or am I allowing my kind of just pain from the past or wounds to flare up and just react? And again, when you react, you're just reenacting typically the past. And so I think for me, that's been some of the stuff I've been really trying to figure out, is to slow it down. And you had a phrase that it spoke to me so much, but anger fantasies. I found myself fantasizing about being in the room with certain people and saying this. And then I would feel shame for feeling that.
Yeah.
And it just was this relationship that I had to not bypass, not minimize, but just start to go, okay, I got to process this with a mentor, with a therapist, with a pastor, with a friend, but really just saying, am I going to surrender my will? Because I can act out in rage. I can act out in anger. But oftentimes all it is just me choosing to realize there's unforgiveness in my heart.
Yeah. No, and my anger fantasies are pathetic because usually they involve me making the other person feel like pond scum because they've been so awful.
Right.
So I don't even get the joy of fantasy retribution or strength or something. It's just, no, I'm aware, don't you feel bad?
Yeah.
And there's just there's no life there. Like, I know it's stupid very often for me with anger, I'll want to withdraw, judge and gossip. And I know there's no life there. But in the moment, there's some charge to it, something in it that feels good.
Yeah. Well, and I think sitting with the sadness or the unresolved grief
or fear. Yeah.
doesn't have the same level of energy as I'm mad or I'm angry. Like you feel something differently.
Anger is energy.
It is, you know, and so that charge, but again, I think that charge is a greater invitation to, is there unforgiveness? Is there something that I have to surrender in my will to the way of Jesus, to actually loving my neighbor, to embodying the Sermon on the Mount? And sometimes I do that well, and a lot of times I don't. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. When you, what do you look for that tells you that there's unforgiveness? If, you know, anger, somebody thwarts your will or hurts you, anger is a response that just alerts us, yep, that's okay. How do you discern between that and there is unforgiveness in my spirit that I need to work on?
Because I want to rationalize and justify why it's okay not to be in relationship and why it's okay to not see them as my neighbor.
Yeah.
Why it's okay for me not to do the work. Because again, forgiveness is a solo sport. Reconciliation takes more people. When you can deal with that unforgiveness and you can cleanse your system of just the toxicity in your brain, the anger in your body, what you're doing is you're setting your heart up for the day, if the day ever comes when that other person could admit, I messed up.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because there'll be people that are listening right now, watching right now. You have somebody like that in your life where there's a broken relationship. Other person doesn't feel trustworthy. We both do have that experience of there is somebody, or there are people out there where it's been a significant relationship. Now there's not contact. How do you think about it? Do you keep trying to reach out? Do you put it on the shelf for a while? What does it look like to say, I'll try to pursue reconciliation if the other person is willing to enter into the mess of what's truth and repentance? Or, nope, I'll just put that on the shelf and leave it there if the other person how do you work through?
It's a really hard one. For me, it's around safety.
Yeah.
Is it a safe situation? And can someone show that they've done their work? I think I am only in control of, have I done my work? Have I worked to try and recognize and mind whatever unforgiveness is in my heart? And I pray.
Yeah.
I pray that someday there will be the opportunity to sit across the table, and that day might never come. But it's holding out hope. And my dad had a massive transformation story. He passed 5 years ago.
I remember we met in Michigan.
Yes.
And had a very long conversation about the journey that we kind of shared, but it was right when your dad passed.
Yep. And what was so moving for me was we had a hard relationship, but he showcased humility. Probably 6 years before he passed, and just began to own how his words and his tone really affected our relationship. And Jonah, I don't know how to describe this, but I would have bet that day never would come.
Wow.
And what that made me recognize is never to give up on someone.
Wow.
Never to not stop praying. I prayed for my dad. I prayed that we'd be reconciled. And those last 6 years, it went slow, but we became so close. And like I miss him. And I don't remember with the same kind of feeling, the pain. I remember the miracle of what God did. And that just gave me hope to say, all right, I'm not going to stop praying for people to name what happened, to define reality, to repent, to move towards that, and to make sure that my heart is open to that. But it's so much easier to say, Raka, you fool, I'm going to it's so much easier to do that. But the way of Jesus is an invitation to go, all right, teach me how to carry this cross and do this well.
So this one is not for you. This one was for me. Didn't know it would be, but this one is for me. And I know what it's like to feel like they were going to happen. You can't see that miracle. And I don't have to see it, but do I have the heart to say, I will keep asking and I won't give up. I will do that. So don't give up. Don't give up. The power of love and the power of forgiveness has yet to be plumbed to its full depths. And So let's practice that today. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm part of the team here at Become New. We've so enjoyed this series, Insurmountable, that we've taken all of John's teachings and put them together in the form of a book, an ebook and an audiobook that we're going to offer to all of you for free. It will be on our website next week, so be sure to go to becomenew.com to download it, to listen to it, to read it, to engage with it there. Also, if you're someone who supports Become New financially, as a thank you, we plan to send you a printed copy of that book. Now, if you're not someone who gives, but you want to give, you can go to becomenew.com/give. And if you do that in the next week or two, we'll send you a copy if we have some. And if you're someone who can't give financially, but you still want a printed copy of the book, you can just email me at connect@becomenew.com and we'll do our best to give you a copy if we have one left. We're ordering only a limited supply of these books. It's not a broad release, it's a self-released book. John's coming out with a broad released book through his publisher next year. Some of you helped us with that. Thank you, by the way. But this is not that. This is just a little thank you and a little gift to the Become New community. Insurmountable is wrapping up this week. We'll take a 2-week break, and then we'll be back for a new series after that. Thanks for joining us. If you've got a prayer request, please text it to us so that we can pray for you. You can text it to the number 855-888-0444. There is no concern too small that God does not care about, and we would love to stand with you in prayer as you carry that burden. We love you. We're grateful for you. Thanks for being on this journey with us, and we'll catch you next time.